We are now streaming. When you get a second, if you can double check to make sure that we are actually streaming and I'm not getting
Twitch. Twitch.tv. Let's go.
not
I should
getting any
probably.
feedback. Oh, I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, I've
Um,
been told that a lot lately with my headset, and I have no idea why.
Let me try again. I can hear it.
Test.
So I can hear it very, very lightly, but I don't. It doesn't bug me, so I'm just gonna go with it. And because not
How's
putting my
that?
not putting my like I putting my headset on gets me really hot just sitting here, and
Mm.
so I don't want to put a headset on so I don't have to sit here and swelter.
Mhm.
But yeah, so
I don't. I haven't got a notification yet that you've gone live.
oh we have a viewer already. Wow. So early in so early in
Oh,
the
there we go.
episode. Hey, Jay the Brown, how goes it? Well,
Jay the
welcome our
Brown.
singular audience member currently to the Modelcast. My name is AeroMaiden, and joining me here today is Spectre. Spectre, say hello.
Hello,
So
humans.
today we are venturing on a little bit of a different journey, if you will. Today will not be Star Citizen stuff, but it will be a continuation of a project I did last year. Hey, it's my brother. Um,
Yay!
and so last year okay, so the past 2 years I've kind of lightly dabbled with designing my own airsoft guns, if you will. Not wholly. I'm taking the mechanics out of a different gun, but making a different body for it.
Mhm.
And I think I've built like I've built like 7 versions now. Um, and so I constructed my final version sometime last year, and I wasn't super happy with it. It's just basically what it comes down to. Just aesthetically, like functionally, it works fine, and it's going kind of towards what I was looking for. But what really needs to happen is I want to get it to a point where it's more aesthetically pleasing, and I want to convert it more to a sniper rifle than a kind of stockless rifle, which is just like a short barrel stockless rifle. Um,
Nice.
so that's what we're going to be doing today. But we got a few things we need to get through. First off, I'm going to
Little
apologize.
house care or
Yeah. So I'm going to apologize first.
oh
My
yeah.
voice is a bit gravelly. I think it's from the fireworks smoke. I could be getting sick too.
You're
Who
not
knows?
supposed to inhale the fireworks when you're setting them off.
I lit a sparkler and like immediately inhaled it and felt sick immediately afterwards. So um, we were doing a lot of photos of uh, lots of fancy photos of sparklers, and let's just say that there was a lot of smoke inhalation from there. So, as an update to what we
Nice.
did last week, if you may or may not remember, last week we designed um, what I considered a fleet show off thing. The episode was called Drunken Bleachers, and the thing kind of ended up looking like bleachers to show off your Star Citizen fleet. And while I ended up not kind of finishing that as it was, that concept I kind of turned into um, a quick project, if you will, and that's kind of what you see on screen right now, which is um, laser etched something similar. So something similar to what I would have done on my little bleachers thing. Ships and made clips for them, so they clipped on top of my monitor. So I can
Heck
have
yeah.
rotating ships on top of my monitor. Not quite what we did last week, but it's the same concept. You know, you have something freestanding that you've laser etched, and I think on the poster board I did use the models turned out better um, than if I would have done them on wood, just because the wood is darker, and so that color contrast you get between the etching and the non-etched areas is less. So I think they came out nice looking. I think there's something more that could be done with this. I don't know what that is at the moment, but we'll probably play with it in the future.
It's definitely a great start. But I do agree that it's not 100% there. There's something missing. It could just be the etching might need to be a bit darker, a little bit more, pops out a little bit more, or
So with I mean in terms of it making I mean the this is a pretty potato photo to be honest. They look pretty good in person. I don't think I can get them much darker because with poster board you have paper and then foam core and then paper, and that's kind of the stack up. And if I
okay.
go too hard with the laser while I'm engraving, you eat through the paper and get to the foam core, and then it just turns into a giant mess.
Oh, makes sense. Okay.
So,
So if
um,
you were to use wood instead,
well,
you could turn it darker if you wanted.
I could turn it darker. The problem with wood is that if you start hitting the wood really hard, it starts creating a smoke, and the smoke stains the wood.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
look at some of my older boxes I did for Star Citizen, where I heavily engraved the box, you'll see like this kind of orangish discoloration around where I've etched, and that's that staining that happens. So that's why a lot of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
later
I've seen
stuff,
that.
the etching was lighter.
Yeah. I've seen that in real life too. Like an old friend of mine, he used to have a CNC machine with a 5-watt laser on it,
Mm,
and this thing would like you could burn like start wood on fire with it.
yeah.
But if you etched one spot too long, it would just char it black. But there was always a bit of a stain. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I could see that for sure. Yeah.
So in any case, we can play with this in the future. I mean, at the very least, because essentially what this is I just made a picture in Keyshot and then threw it to the laser cutter and cut it out. So
Which is a
there's
heck of an
really,
idea.
I mean, it's really quick,
Uh-huh.
and I can basically do any ship in any position any way I want. So
Nice.
I think there's something more creative that could be done with that. I just don't know what it is right now. And the other thing is like something like this would be a great side business if I wasn't IP locked to any of it. So,
Fair enough. Yeah.
it's like, oh man, I could, you know, make these and sell them for like $2 a whack, and
CIG, you're missing out. You
oh
can
well.
make even more hundreds of millions of dollars. CIG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could double your profit every year.
So to get on to what we are doing today, so like I had mentioned, when I Jay, when I mean IP locked, I mean CIG owns the IP for the game, the intellectual property. So I couldn't sell these because that is clearly a Cyclone and that is clearly a Nautilus, and CIG owns those designs. I'm not legally allowed to sell anything with that design on it unless I have permission. So,
Yep.
um, obviously, this is different country to country. Some countries have more lax IP laws than others, but
You need
here
to
in
move to
America, I'm
China so you can just do whatever you want. What? No.
yeah. So
I'm kidding.
I'm not really allowed to sell this kind of stuff. So, it is what it is. Which is why
All
I'm
right.
working to make my
Gun
own stuff.
guns. Let's see
All
guns.
right, so let
Guns.
me see if I can pull up some pictures. Let me see if I can find the picture really quick. Here it is. Cool. So,
Guns and Roses. Ow!
something. Let's see. Let's see if I can change this picture without completely ruining the
Yeah.
layout on the stream.
Drew.
It'll
Don't.
probably ruin it. So, oh yeah, it totally ruined it. let me
GG,
just
Drew.
let me just live edit this thing right here. Um, so what you're seeing in the picture is two airsoft guns that I've designed in the past. The first one that I did is the lower one in the picture. Essentially, what it is it takes the guts from an AK-47 airsoft gun.
Yeah,
It's cool,
nice.
cool, wow, I can't say it. Cool, wow, I can't say the word. It's like
You
colloquially,
can't word today. Can't word today.
colloquially known as a version 3 mechanics, version 3 gearbox, version 3 hop up, the things that go with airsoft guns. And the whole idea of it was that a big airsoft gun is made to look like a gun, which is part of the draw.
Yeah.
Um, the I see that Jay is Jay wants to buy a Dragonfly model. Well, Jay, you
Don't tell
have to
CIG. Shh. No.
if you get in contact with the secret underground model ring, do the secret handshake and they'll hook you up. Um, so with this, my idea was that an airsoft gun is really only the parts that fire BBs. Oh, you were the guy. Did you win the? Sorry, Jay's still talking about the Dragonfly.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fine. I'm on.
did you?
Yeah, he
Did
won one of
you?
the.
You won one of the test squadron ones, correct? I guess I shouldn't be waiting for you to respond, but
It's like
I just was
crickets.
like waiting for him to respond and took a drink.
Well,
So
pro streamers, folks. Pro streamers.
you didn't hear this from me, but I actually still have all of the original engine pods that go to those. So they're the engine pods. So when I made all those Dragonflies for CitizenCon, at the like 11th hour, CIG Legal came back to me and said, "Oh, you need to change a bunch of stuff." And so in like 3 days or something stupid, I had to basically redo like half of the Dragonflies, and so. But I still have all the original pods, and I think the original pods were better. So, you know,
Rip.
should you ever desire them, I'm sure the original engine pods could make their way to you as a way to complete the complete what is the CitizenCon Dragonfly 2018. So, um, anyways, continuing on to my story. So, the idea is that an airsoft gun is really only the parts that fire BBs out of it. Everything else is just kind of a facade to make it look like the gun that it's supposed to be. And so what I did was I took apart all the parts that make an airsoft gun an airsoft gun. So basically what's called the gearbox, which is a motor and a mechanism to shoot air and cycle BBs. The hop up, which is a device that puts backspin on the BB so you can get more range out of it, and then the barrel and the magazine. And I basically stripped it down to the parts that made it an airsoft gun and kind of 3D printed my own casing for it so that I could use it. And
Neat.
I built two of these with the idea that I was going to run two of them, and successfully did that a couple of times back when I
Like
first
dual
made it.
handed. Like I'm a
Yep.
gangster.
Akimbo,
Nice.
little. I call them the little AKSMGs, and they're a ton of fun. They're a ton of fun. They're one of the advantages of them is they're lightweight enough is that your ability to get on target is much faster than somebody who's carrying like an M16 or an M4. You know, they have more mass, they have more gun they have to deal with, whereas just these little tiny things like pew 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 pew.
Yeah.
So that was a great success. I learned why people don't run two guns in real life, and that's because it's impossible to change magazines without putting one of the guns down, and that's really annoying.
Have you not seen action movies where they like
I
slam them
know.
into their they yeah, you have to have them on your belt perfectly, and you got to get cooler, Drew.
I
Got
know.
to.
I got to do the thing where I like drop the magazines and then like slap them against my thighs where the other
Yeah.
magazines are like strapped in.
I mean, there are answers. You just
Mm-hmm.
gotta spend hundreds of hours doing it until you can perfect it. That's all.
So as time went on, the gun you see on top, uh, was an evolution of that design. So it was about that time that I got a router and started working with carbon fiber. And in my mind, I said, "Oh, hey Jay, if you got to take off, have a good one. Get some
Thanks for
sleep
joining
and
us, Jay.
um, well, get some sleep because I know
Get some
most of us
sleep,
need more
Jay,
sleep."
because you have stuff to do tomorrow and you need to adult.
No,
Yeah.
what you're gonna do is you're going to go to my Twitter feed, find the posting to the video for the rest of this episode, and then watch it at work.
There you go.
so,
Jay's gonna be, yeah.
so what ended up happening was I started playing with carbon fiber, and I decided that I was going to make a a new version of what I did with carbon fiber and a longer barrel. The idea being that the the longer barrel not only gives you more accuracy, but it also gives you um, a faster BB because that pressure that you push the BB out with has more time to translate to the BB. Um, so that's kind of what I did here, and that was a fine design. My biggest problem with this is that I didn't like it aesthetically. I just just I'm not happy with the way this design looks. I think it.
Hmm.
I mean, it was a form over function, or sorry, a function over form. But I now that I kind of have the design solid and I have a lot of the key points fleshed out, I want to make it look better. I want it to be more striking, and I want it to be something that's more. Um,
Doesn't look like it was just. It was your first. It's a great. Like, it looks good for a first attempt, especially the top one. Like I think it looks fine for a first attempt, right? So you could easily build on that.
well, so
So
kind of one of the things that I want to do is I want to let's see if this will. There we go. Um, So one of the things I want to do is I want to change the design a little bit, aside from uh, changing kind of the visual design language of it.
mhm.
Currently, it's a short barrel stockless rifle, and I want to convert this into a single shot sniper rifle. So I want to
Okay.
continue along the idea of making something with a lot of carbon fiber, ultra lightweight, but I want to put a much longer barrel on it, and I also want to have a stock on it, as well as replacing the scope with a 4 power. So it would probably end up being more DMR ish because obviously you're going to have the barrel length of a sniper rifle, but the weight's going to be low enough to allow you to be able to acquire targets quicker than, you know, a big heavy sniper rifle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a sweet looking barrel though. Look at the twist on
Yeah,
that.
so the design was pretty straightforward. It's basically two plates of carbon fiber with some other bits, and then the barrel is just an off-the-shelf carbon fiber tube that I
Hmm.
adapted and made the actual. Wow, I just made a suggestive hand sign on stream. The DVL10. John, we'll look up inspiration here in just a minute. Um, so, anyways, this is kind of what we're working with right now, and if I get rid
How
of
about you,
this,
Jonathan? You could post that in our Discord. It says join the discussion. Join the Discord. Post those pictures for us.
that's true. Yeah, if you join the Discord and post the
Join the
pictures,
discussion.
post the pictures, and then we can look at the pictures in the Discord because that'll be a lot easier. Oh,
Well,
he's
see, that's the problem,
so.
Jonathan. You can't be doing two things at once.
Anyways, if I let's see, get rid of that. So currently, what I have up is the actual. Well, I had up. So what I have up is the model for the gun. Now there's some things that are different because I don't have actual models. The scope is not what I used, and the
Eh.
this is the stock hand grip. But for the most part, it's all there. And and the parts that get manufactured are all here. So this is kind of what our starting base is going to be in. And if I take off one of the panels, we'll go through kind of some of the key components of it. So first off, you have your gearbox in here, and this is being cradled by a front and rear bulkhead. Um, and then in this upper compartment right here is battery storage. We have our Picatinny rail up here for, let me see if I can get rid of this. You get the idea. There's a Picatinny rail up here for the scope. And then obviously your barrel shroud, because if you look at this, that's your actual barrel. Your actual barrel is not very big. And then obviously this front little cap thing. If we look inside, obviously you have your gearbox here, and it comes to the front, and then this is your hop up. And
That
the
is
hop
pretty
up,
complicated. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and then
I mean, all those little.
I mean, it's really not that bad. I mean, a lot of this stuff is kind of off the gearbox is off the shelf, the hop up's off the shelf. Really, the only thing I have to do is just adapt to it. And then obviously over here we have a panel. That panel gives you access to the hop up adjustment. So this is what allows you to put more or less backspin on your BB to change its flight trajectory. And obviously you need access to that so you can adjust it on the fly.
Nice.
So that's the basic gist of it. And so one of the things we need to look at now is inspiration. And some of the things that I have been looking at are... let me
I
see
did
if I can
post
get
one
this.
picture there.
Also,
of
did you post? Oh, I see. Is that what John?
It's the type of rifle. This one has a like a carved barrel, or like I should know what that's called, but I don't. Some of them are solid, but yeah, that's the basic look of the gun. So
Yeah. So there's I think we're kind of on the same like wavelength, if you will, because one of the guns that I was looking at for inspiration was I forget the name of it, but I can show this here on stream. So this was one of the inspirations I was going with.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's very similar.
And so looking at this, there's some things to note. So first off, the barrel is very simple. So you have kind of a carbon fiber barrel shroud that comes forward. Some things design-wise that I am kind of keeping in mind is that the barrel shroud's transition to the bulk of the gun is very seamless. There's a lot of guns where that is not. I have a... Oh, here, I can grab it. I'm assuming airsoft guns are allowed on stream for Twitch, so...
Yeah,
I'm
pretty sure I've seen that.
There's an orange tip right here. It's an airsoft gun. But
We'll
if you look at the VSS, its transition between kind of... I mean, well, hell, even this kind of short hand grip right here is not a seamless transition, and then obviously the transition to the barrel, which on the stock gun is real
just
guns
don't put
are
it. Yeah, just don't put it towards
just have
the
to
camera.
be unloaded, not pointed. Okay, so so this the barrel. I mean the barrel on the VSS is a silencer from the factory, but its transition is not seamless as well. That profile goes from hand grip to round, and so it's not, it's design language that you have to look at.
Yeah. Design a language.
So actually, wait a second. Actually, I can show that a little bit later. So it's just some stuff like that I have to keep in mind when I'm looking at this and I'm going, what am I drawing inspiration from, and how do I want it to look? I'm a big fan of that seamless transition. Um, Obviously, the skeletonization of this looks really good. That's kind of what I'm going for. Less weight is better.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. That takes
uh,
2 pounds off the weight right there
are
easily.
you? I'm assuming, John, you're referring to what Emery posted. I can swap to that here shortly. See if I can get that full size.
No, he's talking about something else, I guess.
Oh, he must have posted it. If you can check, I think he may have posted it in the other Discord.
What, John? We have more than one Discord. Yeah, he did. I'll post it in the proper Discord. Jeez, John.
So, John, the idea of having one
There you
that
go.
breaks down, um, huh?
Yeah, it's
I'm
kind of
not
like
so having it break down is probably not a requirement of mine. You add complexity to the design when you do something like that because obviously you have to have points where you can break the design and then they have to be strong enough to withhold a lot of stuff. I'm fine with going and buying just a rifle case for this, and I've got enough of them laying around already. Um, but yeah, so um, kind of looking back further, so this design is kind of interesting. The barrel shroud is uh, so the barrel shroud on this thing is round, not kind of square like the other design. This one you have more of a full barrel, if you will.
mhm.
Um, and then I believe we were I think it was you were talking about how it has those grooves in the barrel.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I believe that's typically called fluting.
Yeah,
It's
you know what? I was gonna say that word too, and I'm just like, why does that not sound right now? But meh. No, yeah. Yep. Sorry.
so and I
Yeah.
believe that's just typically done for weight reduction because obviously you start with a solid
You
barrel.
know, it's like the color red. The cooler, the more holes in your gun, the better it shoots.
Yes, yes. The more tactical your gun is.
Yes, yeah. Your gun has to look cool to shoot cool. If you don't shoot
Mm-hmm.
cool, then it's not a real gun.
To be fair, the gun that we're looking at right now might have a twist off barrel. I mean, that interaction is kind of weird there, but
Yeah, you're right.
because
That's 100% a twist off barrel.
I mean, because a lot of times that removable barrel design is so you can fire the barrel to its limit and then set it aside, let it cool, put another barrel on, and keep going. Because obviously your barrel is going to slowly heat up the more you fire it.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you imagine the bolt action? Can you imagine? Well, I mean, that's it looks like a 338 Lapua, and if that's what that is, then um, it's a mean round, right? Like
yeah, aren't
it's
those pretty hot rounds grain
yeah,
wise?
they are very hot, and it doesn't take more. Like if you shoot 10 rounds out of your gun in like 10 15 minutes, you want to let it cool off.
Hmm.
Like you're better. Um, like 50 cal isn't even that hot when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to powder versus like because it's basically sending the round is like twice the size of a 308, but you're shooting it. Um, I think the round shoots faster than a 50 cal. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a very hot round. Yeah. So that's what this gun is. I think it's a 338 Lapua. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it would have a twist off barrel, or it's for. I mean, it could also be like uh, four back. I mean, like in Canada, we have some firearms that come off like that. Um, some of the Ruger 1022s. There's a takedown model
Mm-hmm.
um, that has a. I think it comes apart in 2 or 3 pieces,
Huh.
and it comes apart right there at the barrel. And we have another gun in Canada that does the same thing. Like they're basically meant to put in your backpack or whatever, or I mean, yeah, it's meant to be for hiking. Like you put your gun in your backpack for hiking. You go out and go target shooting, or you shoot some squirrels or whatever. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of that idea. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So this is the gun that John posted. I think it's with the DVL 10. Or no. Yes, no. They're called the Vanquish. So
That is a very
this is the
minimalistic gun.
full breakdownable airsoft gun.
Yeah, it's so minimalistic though. It's amazing.
So some of the things here uh, wait, this says a full breakdown airsoft sniper rifle. Don't say no, John. Uh, oh,
Say
well,
yes,
okay,
John.
yeah, the DV. Yeah, sorry. This is called the Vanquish. We need to look up the DVL. Emery, can you look up the DVL 10 that
Sure.
John posted, and
DVL
we'll
10.
put it up here in a minute.
That's the first one
Oh,
that you were
that was
showing
sorry,
there.
that was the second gun we looked at.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a here's another one. I think this is the airsoft version.
Okay. Um, so some things about this. Obviously, you have. I mean, it's just a
Ooh.
very simple design, airsoft wise. I don't like the bipod placement on it. I'd like to have a longer stock. Design wise, I'm just not. I don't really like this design. Um, ooh, I'm. Oh, that picture is way too small. I can't use that. Oh, wait a sec. Oh, the first one. Never mind. Interesting. Let me bring this one up on stream and we can talk about it because it's better. It's a little bit more in line with what I'm thinking of. Um,
Whoa! Why is my camera so dark? The heck?
oh wow. Oh, it's because I brought the. Sorry, when I bring the image preview up in Discord, it it tr- makes everything fade out.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, like, I have lights on. I mean,
So this is more interesting. Obviously, you have a very large barrel. I'm assuming it's supposed to be silenced, maybe.
yeah,
Obviously
it
the
looks like it could have
transition
a
to the
built-in
body.
silencer,
Yeah, the
or
transition to the
maybe.
body is better. And then you have kind of the skeletonized, stock and rear of the gun. Um, and so that's a little bit more in line. I think I wanna talk about the first one here just a little bit more. And clearly, it's not happy with
Any
the
body.
size. Actually, let's just look at this part of the gun for now. Whoops. Okay, so if we look at this part of the gun, there's a few things I want to point out. The first of which is a lot of these skeletonized guns. You have kind of this angled slash back here. It's almost like the body purposefully is exposing the hammer um, on your bolt action rifle. And I mean that's kind of a common design on a lot of these things. Um, and so one of the challenges I have is that when you're looking at the airsoft version, and I can go back to this really quick. If you look at the rear of this, I have to deal with this idea that the gearbox in here is pretty much a fixed shape. And actually, if I just hide the stuff on the rear of here, you can see that the gearbox kind of kicks itself out further than the handle at this point. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of prominent, and so it kind of hurts the idea that if you wanted to make a gun where you had this hard slash where your hammer was, your gearbox is going to be kind of defeating that a little bit.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I need to work on and I need to look at and make sure that it's something that I can actually design or make look appropriate. I may end up faking it a little bit, so um, I may end up having my design, the body work kind of angle cut through this, and this just kind of is exposed. It kind of tricks the eye at that point, especially with
Yeah,
this being
you
kind
could
of
do that.
silver
Yeah.
and the carbon fiber being dark.
Yeah, that could look. It could just be You could make it a. Yeah, it could be a style, aesthetic. Like it could just. Yeah, design language. It could work easily. Yeah.
Another thing is obviously your skeletonized stock. If you look at any of these ultralight sniper rifles. They definitely have um,
Yeah, they
you
shave
know,
three or
this
four
this
pounds off wherever
the,
they can.
yeah, it's like, hey,
Yeah,
we started with a huge chunk of aluminum and basically machined like 95% of it away.
yeah, yeah.
Thankfully, a lot of those shops recycle their aluminum, so
I was just literally thinking. I'm like, that's a lot of waste.
there's a lot
but
of, I mean, it's very
but
common. I mean, especially considering the price of uh, scrap metal, if you will. That it's a very common practice. I mean, the shops that I use for work recycle all of their.
well, yeah, especially if it's like a if you're just machining aluminum over and over and again, like take that mountain and just remelt it, recast it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't know how many times you can remelt aluminum and recast it before it's structural. The integrity of it isn't as good. I don't know, but I don't know if that's even an issue or not. But
Yeah, yeah.
I can see that just yeah, it's just like a factory that uses. They're making like candies and they just have these big trays and they're just draping chocolate over all of it, and only like 10% of the chocolate's hitting something. I
Mm-hmm.
used to think, oh, what a waste, but no, they just recycle it over and over and over and over, you know, until
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna start putting stuff in here in the model so we can start getting a better idea of what we're going for. So the two things I've just added, obviously, we're not going to be using the red dot sight that I had originally on this. The red dot sight is going to be not good enough for our sniper rifle, so that is going to be replaced with a 4 power scope, and I believe this is a semi-accurate model to what I have. I think this is the zoom ring on the back. I think this is like a 3 to 9 power, not the static 4 power that I will be using.
Quick
Um,
question, um,
yes,
because I don't know this, but for anybody watching that doesn't know this as well, are the scopes you use for airsoft rifles the same as a real gun or?
yes.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if they had to be different because of the way the beep or the round comes out. If it has a different drop ratio or like, I don't know.
Nope.
Like,
Nope. You just
yeah, okay,
you
cool.
gotta scope and you zero it in. It's actually kind of the opposite. Airsoft has produced scopes that are somewhat incompatible with real firearms.
Oh, really?
This is actually a
Okay.
problem if you get on like look at reviews on Amazon for scopes. The quality of scopes from some manufacturers has actually dropped because people buy them for airsoft, but the scope is not designed to a tolerance that can accept the the visceral like
Yeah.
vibrations and forces from firing a firearm. And
Okay.
so a
Yeah.
lot of times on scopes that are have a low enough quality to where they work great for airsoft, they fall out of zero when firing them on a real firearm.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's something you'll run into. They're operationally they're exactly the same. It's just you have scopes that are really designed more for airsoft in mind that you can
Their
set it and
tolerance
adjust it
level
and
isn't
use it,
as
but
high. Yeah.
the second you start like putting rounds through a real gun attached to it, it's going to fall out of focus because it doesn't have those kind of
Hmm.
overbuilt features built into them.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Actually, there's some you gotta that happens sometimes in the firearm world too, where like for example, if you have a World War II rifle like an M1 Grand or an M1A just after and Vietnam War, but they never were built with a scope in mind. But you can get kits that allow you to
Mm-hmm.
put a scope on them.
Yeah.
Um, you have to have a certain kind of scope because not all scopes are built to because those rifles they fire a powerful round and they're rough.
Yeah.
So they're very hard on scopes. Like it's not uncommon if you have an M1A or something and you have a scope on it, that scope will last maybe 3 or 4 uses, and you don't want to put an expensive scope on because it,
Mm-hmm.
it just it wears it out really fast. So it's kind of interesting that that can happen too. So it's kind of yeah.
So another aspect of this is that I'm going to be putting a aftermarket barrel on. I actually have it right here. So this is a Mad Bull tight bore barrel. This is the first time I'll ever actually be putting any sort of aftermarket barrel on any gun I've ever owned. I've, for better or worse, typically run them mostly stock, just because
Mm,
they seem to work super well when you keep them stock, and the second you start messing with stuff, the reliability goes down. But
yeah.
so this is gonna hopefully be kind of the piece de resistance of getting kind of precise sniping. Um, and then I may end up upgrading the hop up to sometime in the near future as well. But so
Nice.
what you see in the model, the long thing that's sticking out is the representation of this guy, which is one I want to go to.
The long thing sticking out. Nice.
So I guess while we're looking at this, I guess one of the things that we should probably talk about is the barrel. So one of the design aspects that I've had trouble with over the years is the idea of the barrel. Okay, this is a barrel. Okay, um, if you put this in an airsoft gun and you fire it, uh, um, it it fires a BB. It does its purpose, and this is pretty lightweight. This is very minimal. So the idea of putting a barrel shroud around this, putting something to support this,
Like a real
well,
barrel, yeah.
so if you look at what I did on the old gun, I have this carbon fiber barrel that goes around it, and literally that's all it does is um, literally all it does is it goes around the barrel. And so there's this idea, so I have carbon fiber tube here, and if I, you know, cool, I have my barrel now inside a carbon fiber tube. I'm so on
No, it looks
the
cool.
on the plus, well, so on the plus side, I now have a barrel that looks more like a barrel does in real life.
Yeah.
I can't, I don't know how many times I've ever seen a barrel this big. Um, and
Well, I mean,
so
it makes sense. Like when with airsoft and paintballing and that kind of stuff, you guys, people generally want. A lot of people train with them, so they want
yeah,
as realistic weight as possible, or realistic everything as possible,
but
to
see,
maximize the efficiency of the training.
But see,
So
part of me doesn't care because I'm not basing this on something real, and so I
fair
have
enough. Yeah.
liberties to. I have some liberty to make this not entirely
You,
real.
yeah, you
Um,
can go the direction
that
of
being
whatever the hell you want.
well, that being said, if I show up to an airsoft field with this, I'm gonna get some weird looks. Um, and the other thing is that on the plus side, putting a barrel shroud around this protects this and gives it strength because this is not, I mean, I'm not putting an insubstantial amount of pressure on this, but um,
You should
I can still
bend it
bend
really
this.
hard.
If I was running, and then just dug this in the ground and torqued it, I could probably bend this thing in half. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and obviously, I don't want that. And so I'm thinking the barrel shroud is probably the smart idea. Um, so what I'm most likely going to do, unless I can come up with a better design, is excuse me.
Excuse you.
Um, oh man, I got
Yeah,
the got
I'm
the
drinking Coke Zero, so I'm burping too, but I'm trying to keep it quiet. I didn't want to.
Oh no. This is an award-winning podcast. We burp out loud.
All right, well
Um,
I'll start burp. Oh, you might taste my burps if I burp.
so
I'm just
okay,
saying.
so here we go. So we extended that carbon fiber thing out. So now we have
I
this,
like
and
that.
then
I
what
like
can
that.
happen is
Mm.
I can make a plug for the end of this to
Yeah, I
where.
was gonna say if you could really do a lot with that. It'd make it
Hmm.
look really freaking cool. Cause I like how it's in, what is that, about half inch, centimeter,
Yeah, it's
a,
set in a little bit. Yeah,
a
something like that.
centimeter. What?
Hmm?
A centimeter. You guys don't have those in Freedom Land.
We don't believe in your heresy units.
It's the size of a dime.
So I mean, so something that I could do. Do I have the ability to? Sorry, I had to move. I had to move My Little Pony in order to see part of the toolbar on my CAD program. I'm not
There you
kidding.
go.
Let me prove it to you. Here is a pony. It was blocking part of
Yes.
the toolbar.
Aw, it's I don't know her name.
Don't at me. Um, so let's see if we can. So obviously we have the end of this barrel, and let's just add like let's add a slot in the end, because there's kind of this idea that this barrel end could be, you know, it could be something more, it could be nothing, so if I
You are
did,
compression. So the
do
if you put those
I
up,
do I and oh here, maybe I move this forward a little more. I'm basically playing around with the end of this barrel because obviously I could make the barrel just the plain carbon fiber tube straight out to the end. And I don't really know yet if that's too plain. If I did something like this to where now I have, let me move this out, and then let me rotate it. Now it's
there
to
you
where it's
go.
something
Now
to
it's
like
a proper.
this barrel end kind of looks like
It does something.
a normal barrel end now. It's like, is that worth the effort?
Yes, true.
You like it? You think it's good?
I mean, you could always make it a little bit more mean looking. But yeah, I mean, you can make it aggressive looking if you want.
Okay.
That looks. Does it look aggressive enough to me?
Okay. So yeah, so I mean obviously, doing so
I'm gonna Google
ex,
aggressive barrel ends.
ex
Aggressive. Is
well,
that
I
a
mean,
thing?
okay, you're going to Google aggressive barrel ends and you're going to come up with basically 50 cal Barrett recoil or whatever they're called, the ones that basically remove recoil.
Oh.
Yeah, cuz the
Uh,
Barrett ones, they shoot the gas backwards to pull the gun forward as it fires,
I see.
or the
Well, let
50
me
cal
look
ones.
up. Let me. I could try and. Man, there's literally nothing like freaking YouTube. Or I mean, not YouTube.
Okay, so obviously we want to
This
get
one's not
rid
too
of
bad.
we don't want my upper and lower
It's an
pieces.
AR-15 barrel end.
Whoops.
Whatever processes.
I didn't mean to do that. Let's hide that, not destroy it. And our stream has been joined by what I think is a gnat.
What is the net?
A gnat, like a little small insect.
Oh, nice.
Is the
Welcome,
is the
Nat.
term gnat?
If you have any questions, Nat, please ask us.
I think the gnat is drawn to the design.
Yes, that's the right kind of Nat. You should keep that as a pet.
So here's what we got. So I've kind of clipped off a lot of what was going on here.
The screws just hold it center, right? Oh, never mind. You guys
Well, I just gotta get rid of the screws because they're just a distraction at this point.
Mm-hmm. Keep the
And
screws
this
out, it
rear
falls
cap
apart.
doesn't need to be there, and these screws don't need to be here. I'm gonna save those two screws. Okay, so let's play a little bit more with the layout of this. So obviously we're gonna have a longer barrel. Whether or not the barrel is this long, questionable. I'm kind of torn because obviously if I do this kind of like hole lightning at the end,
Hmm.
it's extending the barrel even further, and I don't know if I really want the barrel to be overly long, if you will.
Okay.
Um, if that makes sense, you know, because obviously
Does
the
it
longer
add
I make the
any?
barrel, the more it weighs, and the
But
kind
it
of
doesn't
more
add anything
unbalanced it might
to.
be. Because I mean, obviously, if you look at the gun from a like a balanced design, there's
Hmm.
going to be a stock and there's going to be a barrel. If the In my mind, if the stock and the barrel are closer in size, the gun feels more balanced from a viewpoint, from a visual standpoint.
Okay.
Because so at this point, in my mind, the longer I make the barrel, the longer I am, the higher the discrepancy between the stock and the barrel is, if you will, that ratio.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, of course, I'd like to point out, you know, it's like this is very much a what do you call it, an exploration of aesthetics, if you will, because you know, I mean, obviously, if I was designing this with some form of some form of mechanical, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? If I was designing this for a
If it
certain
had. Yeah. If it
mechanical
had.
goal, obviously
Yeah.
I would put
Functional. Like if it
concessions
was
in, and
function
we would
over
be working
form.
with a function over form. Um,
Yeah.
but in this case, I mean, as much as I like to say, yeah, this is going to be a lightweight sniper rifle and yada yada yada, I have no hard numbers for goals. It's just kind of a make design decisions that kind of tend in that direction. Because
Hmm.
as much as it would be cool to be like, I want it under, I don't know, 1,500 grams and yada yada yada, it's like, okay, if I meet the requirements, I'm not winning any prizes. It's not, you know, I have no way of saying these goals are going to be, are going to be the end all be all.
Yeah.
I win the airsoft prize kind of thing. So it's just one of those things where it's like we're experimenting with design language, we're experimenting with kind of tending in a direction and making trying to make smart design choices while we get there. So
Absolutely.
let me bring up my show and tell again. So something I need to improve upon is this design language intent here, that is this multi-level kind of interest, if you will, that this gun has going on. So as you can see, like it's obviously up here towards the hammer, it's more protruding. Down here
Yeah.
towards the magazine, it scoops in, and then down here towards the trigger, it scoops in even more. Um, Obviously, one of the problems I have is that the side of this. Let me go back to that. The side of the gearbox is very flat. There's not really a whole lot of concessions for that, especially when you get down here to um, the handle, because it's got its own. Someone shooting fireworks off outside. Um, the handle has its
Oh.
own width, and I'd like to match that width, obviously, with the gun or with the sides. So looking at that design language, it's like, okay, what can we do to maybe add a little bit of visual interest into the gun? And one of the things, if I go back to the show and tell, I like this idea that they have. So it goes back to something I said earlier, which is the shroud of the barrel, the or your hand grip, if you will, matches the width of where it intersects with the main body of the gun. And so that's something that I want to do. And I think it'll be good because I think it'll be good to play with this idea of um, having the carbon fiber. So making a barrel shroud, making a hand grip out of carbon fiber, but having it come back on top of the body, back into this area, so that that transition is seamless.
Yeah. So basically, it's just. Yeah. It's a kind of like a glove that fits over all the imperfections and
Exactly.
yeah. Okay.
Um,
That's a smart idea.
so that's something that I have to look to in terms of what do I want this design language to look like. Another thing, so if we go back to this gun, um, you can see that the barrel is oh nope, don't want to change that. Grab the wrong part. Here we go. So if you look at the oh, no, that covers me up. This is this is professional streaming 101, by the way.
That's so good.
Here we go. Looking at this, if you look at the barrel, or if you look at the barrel shroud, you'll notice that the barrel itself is relatively high in the barrel shroud. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
and if you go back and look at mine, my barrel is actually relatively mid height on the body. And that's something I'd like to rectify because I think the gun aesthetically looks better. It looks more like a real, kind of gives it more of a real firearm look if the barrel is high visually in the shroud. Because
Yeah.
obviously the barrel goes through the top part, your hand cradles the bottom part, and there's a little bit of a gap. So relocating, so one of the reasons why I have that kind of gap up here is because there's a battery. So this blue thing is an 11.1 lipo battery, and currently there's room for it, but you have to consider, well, maybe that's not the best place for it. So that's another thing that needs to be considered. And honestly, I'm thinking that the best place for this thing is probably just going to be back here in the stock somewhere.
Okay.
Because I mean that's what. So if you,
I
if you,
mean,
if you've ever
yeah,
used like an M4 or an M16 or an AR-15 airsoft gun, a lot of those guns put the battery in the buffer tube,
oh, okay.
which is easy to do and works well for them. So it's something that is worth considering for this design.
I'm just googling some of this for reference.
For people that are wondering, I am currently drinking a
I like that
um,
idea.
is it Temskull? I think it's Temskull. Uh, Temescal Brewing from Oakland, California. The
Ooh.
hazy, juicy, hazy IPA. It's pretty good.
Hazy.
Um,
That sounds kind
our
of
our
like
market of choice just started carrying some of these, so I figured I'd give it a shot. Always got to try the new brands when they come out.
hazy. That kind of sounds like uh, velvet fog kind of. Is it kind of like a? Do you remember the velvet fog we had?
I
I don't know if you
do.
do.
So hazies are my understanding, and I'm probably going to get this wrong. My understanding of a hazy IPA is it's an unfiltered IPA, and a lot of them tend to go more towards the citrusy flavor a little bit of an IPA.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yep.
So you'll get an IPA that is it's still bitter like an IPA, but it's got more body to it, if you will. Like it's like there's a lot of IPA, like you get double IPAs and triple IPAs, and a lot of what makes them stand out and a lot of what the draw to them is that they get ultra bitter, ultra bitter. And I love a good triple IPA, but I noticed that there's a lot of people that like hazies because they don't rely on the bitterness as much. They go towards having more body, more of kind of this full body flavor to it that appeals
Okay.
to a lot of people.
Nice.
So,
I look forward to trying that. It sounds good. And I'm
I mean,
drinking
they're all the craze down here in the States right now.
Coke Zero.
Oh, not. I couldn't call this the drunk stream. I'm very disappointed.
Well, I was gonna drink, but then I'm like, I only had vodka, and I don't really feel like vodka tonight. So.
Had I known that, I would have grabbed the sake instead, and we could have just sake and vodka all night.
Oh, that's okay, buddy. We can. I mean, I could run upstairs and grab a cooler. the schoolers and
No,
the
no,
fish.
it's fine. So, okay, so let's do some more dissecting of
Sorry to
this model right
disappoint.
now. So, so I got rid of my top panel and I'm going to get rid of this front panel thing that I made that I don't even know why I did it. I made it I
So it looks neat.
I
That's
don't
why, Drew.
uh
Just curiosity. Why is there like little lines on the program? Like little hairlines.
little lines. What?
I see little lines. I'll take a
What are you
screen
talking
capture.
about?
Hold on. I'll send you a screen capture, and you'll see.
Maybe
See
it's
on my.
maybe it's the streaming engine that's.
I'm curious because they're neat. It kind of adds to it a bit, but
Where are you posting this?
just in there. I mean,
Stream
you have
discussion?
to. Yeah. You have to zoom in. You'll see them. There's little lines all over it.
Little lines all over. What? Oh, that was blocking your webcam.
Oh.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, are you referring to like the line in the scope right now?
No. You'll see little white lines around the border on the outside, and then there's like a weird cloud-looking. You can look after. It's fine.
Around the
You have to.
border on the outside.
You have to zoom into the photo to really see them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll take a
It's
look
okay.
later. I haven't noticed anything. Um, so, anyways, so with kind of what I'm talking about, let us. So I'm gonna get rid of what was there. I'm gonna move the existing Picatinny rail because obviously we need that. But in good sniper fashion, this is gonna have to get bigger. Um, so we'll put the Picatinny up here, just kind of. We need to figure out where the scope is going to go, because one of the things that we have to worry about is that when it comes to airsoft, a lot of rifles have a scope that's along the top of the body, but the problem is when you're playing airsoft, you have a mask on, and so that mask makes your head higher on the gun, so
I
you
was gonna say,
have
why
to
don't you put it on
actively.
the side? Could you? Is that a thing? I don't know. I've never. Could, like the side be like kind of. I mean,
I mean that's the way a lot of guns were in like World War One, World War Two.
yeah. I mean, I remember seeing
But
that,
that
but
was a
like that was a short-lived fad.
but
Yeah.
that was a by in World War One. That was a byproduct of the fact that um, you had a lot of rifles that were top loading, if I remember right. So you couldn't have
Mhm.
a scope where because you had your stripper clip, and you'd
Yeah.
push the bullets into the chamber or into the magazine, and then
But you
pop.
could do that with yours if it helps with the helmet. You
Sure,
could.
sure.
Yeah.
I never really thought of that to be entirely honest.
I just thought of it. I came to my mind. I'm like, I've seen them before.
So one of the
It must
problems
be a reason
you would
why.
have is that the gun's gonna sit stock here on your shoulder and go forward,
Mhm.
and if I take that scope and put it to the side, it's gonna lower it to where I have to lift the gun even higher.
What about like kind of on the top corner, like not on the top but not on the side, kind of?
I'm gonna rename this podcast "Two Men Hold Their Hands Up and Try to Imagine Holding Guns in
All
the
my
Air." Look at
hand
I.
movements.
What if we put the scope
Woo!
underneath of it? I just hold the gun over my head. And I'm like pew 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 pew.
I'm just thinking like there could be a way around that, like
Sure,
mount
sure,
it.
sure. I totally get that. It's just I'm trying to think like I'm trying to think like what would be the downsides of that because
Yeah, for sure.
obviously because one of the things with airsoft is that your BB has a non-straight trajectory. It comes out of the gun and because of the backspin, it will either eventually tend up or lob the shot, you know. And so having the scope down the center line means that you can quickly adjust the scope to kind of
Yeah,
where your intended target is at what range. If you put the scope off to the side, now you're dealing with this idea that the BB is moving horizontally in your scope as it travels down its range.
yeah, fair enough.
So keeping it on top is probably going to be the best idea in theory.
Could you put it on the top but to the side, just like to the left or the right slightly, like make
You
it off
could,
center,
you
like
could.
off center it by an inch or two. Would that help a lot or?
Um, I don't know if it would help. I'd probably have to grab my mask in one of my existing guns and see kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah. Well, those are ideas you can play around with for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now I clipped off the top portion of my assembly,
Oh no.
because that top portion was where the battery was. But in doing so, we've now lowered that top deck height to more in line with the visual language of existing firearms.
Yeah. For sure.
And I like this because obviously I was never really a fan of it being that tall. Um, I think this is something we can work with. But obviously, in something that I'm eventually going to have to get to is this idea that I'm going to have to start hacking up these existing support blocks, because obviously the existing support blocks are very square. They're very blocky, if you will, and they don't follow the design language that I want. Um, One of the things this existing support block does, or the front one, is that it supports um, the barrel, the outer barrel, if you will,
Mhm.
because it's actually a press fit into here, if you can see it. And I think I'm going to try to get away from that. I don't think that is what we're going to want. And one of the other things is that currently this outer barrel here, I already know that in the model this is too long. Um, you know, let's see if I can get it far enough away. This is how long the piece is that I currently have. And so
Okay.
the thing in the model is longer. So I need to deal with the idea that this outer barrel, needs to be shorter in the model, which means that I either need to um, bring the body out further like this to
Mhm.
meet it, or I need to come up with some way of having this transition into my barrel shroud / hand grip, and then
If you
having it support the outer barrel somewhere along its lines.
no, if you did the first idea, um, what you could do is like you can extend it out, but skeletonize it hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, lose that weight, make it look awesome. You could do that. That's option one. Um, you can see how that looks.
Yeah. So another thing that's going to happen is I will be getting rid. So currently, this is your fire mode selector switch. I'm going to be getting rid of that.
Just
Um,
gonna leave it on full auto. I mean, what?
no, I'm going to leave it on semi.
No full auto in the building. It's not full auto. Damn. I don't know if you've
Oh,
seen that.
you're referring to that video where the guy's
Yeah.
like, the
It's like,
guy, it's like, and then the guy's like, no full auto, and he's like, this is full auto. Boom.
it's like,
It
damn.
sounds like an A10's coming in overhead.
Yeah, that's what.
How do you defeat terrorism?
Yeah, one bird at a time.
So I will be getting. Well, we're just gonna do it right now. So I'm gonna be getting rid of this fire selector switch. Um, that's gonna limit the gun to semi-auto. I don't think I really. Uh, mm. So, hmm. So on one hand, I can leave the selector switch, and the selector switch gives me the option to go full auto, or I could just leave it in full auto, I guess. No. I'm gonna get rid of the selector switch. Okay, people can fight me on this. I'm gonna leave it in semi-auto only.
Fight me,
Um,
bro.
to be fair, my VSS is full auto. My VSS is what I
What
typically.
if? What if? Could you have a selector switch handy, but have it just like a little hole? You can set it in quickly, switch it, and then put it back in your pocket, so it's not sitting there all the time. Is that possible?
So the VSS is. I mean, obviously the VSS is to some degree based on Kalishnikov's AK design. So
Yeah, boy.
obviously you have the selector switch here that is, you know, the same design, and obviously this goes full auto and semi-auto, but one of the things is that this is more of a, I guess, more. This is more like an M16, if you will. Um, like handling wise, because obviously
Okay.
your airsoft. I mean, obviously the VSS in real life is specialized. It's a 9 millimeter subsonic silenced. This is your special ops gun.
Yeah.
You know, in airsoft, it's the same as everything else. There's nothing different about it. It shoots BBs. It shoots them at some rate of fire. You're just dealing with the ergonomics of a VSS now um, instead of a M16, if you will.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing is that going to this design, what I think I want to do is just be semi-auto only, because with the semi-auto, sorry. What I was getting to was the idea of, like, I rarely use this gun full auto. Like, there's been very few times that I have actually um,
If you wanted
felt the
5 seconds of jollies, be like, yeah, I'm going.
well, there's been
Okay.
very few times where I felt the need to actually go full auto with it. Um,
What if you were to
I can't even
attach a
remember the
battery?
last time. I can't even remember the last time I was on the field and I was like, I need to use full auto. Like, I think the last time I used it was the, the round ended and I went full auto and just like sprayed because I was happy we won. Um,
Nice.
so, and obviously, like, if you go to another one of Kalishnikov's design, well, I take it back. It's based on the AK, but I don't think this was a Kalishnikov design. If you go to like the SVD, you have the same selector switch here, but obviously this has two positions, which is well, which is semi-auto and safe. So this is a semi-auto only design, and it uses the same selector switch. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to get rid of that selector switch and set up the system for semi-auto only. That's going to simplify some of this mechanics to where
Yeah,
now,
makes sense. Yeah, you
so
take all that the
because
whole
then the
shenanigans
side
off
of
the
your
side.
gun becomes smooth. You can do whatever you want
Yeah.
with it. You know, I get rid of these things, and then now all I have to do. So part of your selector system in your gearbox is this rod right here, and so what it does is it slides forward, and when it slides forward, it picks up basically your contact. So when you pull the trigger, it allows a shot and then closes the electrical contacts. When you slide this forward into full auto, it leaves it open to where if you hold the trigger will continue to fire the gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a very easy way for me to make this either always full auto or always semi-auto is I can actually get rid of all of this mechanic stuff that's on this side of the gun and this crossover tube that's actually back here. And all I have to do is just freeze this plate right here. And that's actually what I did on the original small gun that you saw, or the original small 3D printed Airsoft SMG that I made. Was I had a tang that froze this in place, so where it was always fully auto, and it worked great. But the thing to realize is that because this is an electronic system, and so this right here is actually your safety in the gearbox. So when you move this bar to its safety position, it actually puts a physical stop in here to prevent you from pulling the trigger. Because an airsoft gun is electrical, I don't need a mechanical stop in order to have a safe gun. So I'm just going to put a switch in that kills the battery to the gun, and that'll be my safety. Emery? I think we lost Emery. His picture's frozen, and Yep, we lost Emery. It's a sad day. Mourn for Canada, boys and girls. Mourn for Canada. Actually, to be fair, his internet's been doing weird things around this time of night for the last week or so. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I guess continuing to what I was talking about. So we have this bar. So what I'll end up doing is probably just freezing it in place. It'll all be behind the panels that are here, to where nobody will see it, to where the side of the gun should be clean as far as a mechanical design, but obviously you're going to have it be designed in... Oh, we actually lost Emery completely. I wonder if I can put a cute picture up for him. This is our new Emery. Emery has become what he always wanted to be, which is a beautiful rifle. And I can't okay, there we go. There we go.
Oh, here we go.
Are you watching the stream?
No, my internet died.
Okay, I figured. Your internet's been doing that about this time of night for the past week.
Yeah, I was just talking to my son about that. I'm like, why is it at 12:30 to 1 o'clock in the morning, our internet just starts doing this? It'll do this again in probably 10-15 minutes, and it's like...
You might look at your router and see if it has any restart routines, because I know at least back in the olden days with our Linksys router, it was programmed to restart at 12:30 at night.
Oh, that's such a stupid time, man. That's prime of my day right there. I don't need that nonsense. I have to change.
Are you watching the stream?
I am now, yeah.
Have you seen what I did?
Yeah, I like that replacement. It's perfect.
You are now a beautiful firearm.
Yay! I should be, I think my webcam's running yet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry about that. That's annoying that it's doing that.
I have a problem. I hope I don't. Okay, there we go. Okay. I want to make sure that I wasn't accidentally grabbing your webcam, because OBS is very unforgiving when it comes to you click something, and if you aren't 100% sure you know what you're clicking, you're going to start dragging different elements. I mean, that's why you saw me drag the overlay at one point during the stream.
Nice.
So
I'm back, folks.
So anyways, I don't remember where you left off, but basically we were talking about the fact that the piece that I just hit on accident is really the only part that dictates the firing mode of the gun, and so I'm gonna freeze that in place behind the panels, and that will be what
it just keeps it in place to semi-auto.
Yeah, what keeps it to semi-auto. So and
I think that's what they do with any gun that any rifle in Canada that used to be full auto. You can buy an M1A here. Well, they all had full auto capability, but they're all semi-auto now. So
it depends
they've
upon
done something like that.
It depends upon how the gun fires, because I believe there's a difference between firing from an open breech and a closed breech, to where firing from an open breech is really easy to go full auto, and that's the way a lot of the Mac 10 is done that way, and the MG4 or something was done that way, and it's actually kind of interesting. I really like the MG and the FG42, the FG42 in particular, World War II paratrooper gun. It actually has a full auto and a semi-auto mode, and in full auto it fires from an open breech, and in semi-auto it fires from a closed breech.
Interesting. That's
your AeroMaiden historical fact for the day. But anyways, very interesting. But yeah, the way the gun fires if the way a firearm fires in real life typically gives an indication of how easy it is to make it fire full auto versus semi-auto.
Yeah. Well, I know there's cases here in Canada where the semi-auto M1As and stuff, sometimes they malfunction and they'll go to full auto again. So you'll be at a gun range and going pow pow, and all of a sudden, it's like, oh well, that wasn't supposed to happen.
I'd believe it. So anyways, back on our journey.
Yeah.
So kind of what we've done is man, I'm losing my words. We've kind of started to block out kind of where this is going. Um, I think there's still some major design decisions that need to be made, but as you can see, we're starting to get a bit of a layout going. Obviously, we're going to use the carbon fiber barrel shroud. We need to
Yep,
figure out some form of interface. However, chopping off the top of this, I think, really has helped it aesthetically look
it's
more like
definitely
a
the right
standard
direction. Yeah.
firearm.
And then once you fit that glove, so to speak, over the front and everything there, it'll just be nice and curvy and not so blockish. And you can also do that with the back
Yeah,
and
and to be fair, I think what's going to end up happening is this part is going to get heavily cut back. Um, the current kind of shroud that I have going, it's going to get cut back heavily, and I'm probably going to come up with a more creative way of doing the barrel support.
what maybe like could you do like a fiberglass like you could make like a template and just fiberglass it? Would that be something you're
Probably
into?
not.
No. Okay.
I'm not. I'm not set up for fiberglass, and fiberglass is actually pretty heavy.
Oh really? Okay.
I mean, depends upon how many layers and whatnot, but in general, fiberglass is somewhat heavy. Um, if you're going for like all out strength with it.
I've
Um,
only ever used it repairing like tanks and stuff
mm,
like my sewage tank on my holiday trailer had a leak, so I took some acetone and put it on, and then I put some melted. I mixed a bunch of plastic um, piping with acetone and made like a rubber a I put that on, and then I slapped a piece of fiberglass on it, and then I put some over top, and then now
yeah.
it's better than the original tank itself. Yeah.
So clearly, what's going to have to happen is at this point or I'm gonna have to come up with kind of how I want to hack this up. I mean, this currently is a pretty bulky piece. I'm gonna wanna weight reduce it. I think that's gonna be a smart decision, and I'm also gonna have to figure out how I want my barrel shroud slash hand grip interface to work out.
Hmm.
I'm thinking that at least the one we were looking at, where it kind of had the square bottom and the rounded top.
Yeah.
Um, let's see if I can go put that up again. So you can look at the front of it here. It has more of a square bottom and a rounded top. Um,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to try to emulate that. I really like this design. We'll just put that out there. Um,
Yeah. No, it's. I'm actually. That looks solid. Definitely, it's the right direction.
so in emulating that design, obviously I cannot round the top. I'm cutting carbon fiber in flat sheets. I don't have the ability to make it molded at this point in time. So,
Okay.
figuring out what I want to do with the square top of this, seeing if there's a way I can either round it or um, maybe make like angled cuts on it to where now it's a little bit blockier looking than this, but still kind of maintains that really nice kind of flat bottom, pointed top, if you will.
Yeah, like you could kind of start like like a flat, and then goes down uh 25 degrees or whatever, and then you just make it square from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would work. 'Cause, I mean, it kind of actually kind of looks like that. Like at the front glare on it makes it look like it's not rounded. It actually makes it look like it's on a bit of an angle. Actually, I
Yeah.
don't even know if that's completely rounded, to be honest. It might actually be. Yeah, it's hard to
Yeah,
tell from
I
that
don't know.
angle,
I
but
mean, I'm assuming it's rounded. A lot of designs like this, a lot of bolt action designs have a rounded top just because it follows the round design of your hammer.
makes sense. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so looking into that, that's gonna have to be designed. Um, I like I like this. So up on this leading edge, I like this scoop up.
Hmm.
It makes their hand grip shorter. It makes it smaller. It's not chunky and it saves weight. One of the things I have to deal with here is they're using some sort of M4 style, well, probably an M4 style magazine that has kind of the through push button to work. In terms of the poorly seated magazine that's currently in this model, um, I have a little bit of geometry on the leading edge that I have to keep. Although I might be able to cut this off right here and make this lip here that I have 3D printed just a piece of carbon fiber. Probably be
The,
lighter
the
weight.
the
Might be a
the
smarter way
the
of doing
gun's
it.
still covering up all
Hmm?
the
Oh,
picture. The
yeah, you're
pictures,
right.
yeah. I'm like, I can't see what you're talking about, Drew.
So yeah, so on the front of this here, in order to kind of scallop this up, I need to kind of hack away at this a little bit. And I think what I'm going to do is get rid of this lip and just replace it with a piece of carbon fiber so that it can be
Hmm.
really minimal but still strong.
Yep, yep.
So
Are you able to do that on the curvature there? Can you curve that so the hand fits? Like, are you gonna be able to curve that at all, or you just gonna?
what do you mean curve it? I mean like curve it like they have here, like where it's scooped at the bottom a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Can you do that? Are you able to
Yeah, I
do
know
that?
I could do that.
Okay.
It really kind of depends. I think it'll depend upon how this design looks because obviously having rounded interfaces in a design with rounded features go hand in hand.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
if this gun still ends up looking a little blocky, I may have to, instead of rounding it, kind of make that a harder corner just because it needs to fit with the design aesthetic of the gun. So,
Makes sense. Yeah.
so
But
one of
it's
the
it's kind of a you have to see as you go sort of thing.
yeah, and I think at least in this particular design, the first thing that I'm going to end up having to do is I'm going to have to start hacking away at kind of this structure and see what I can get it down to safely, because ultimately to some degree there will be a function over form where functionally these parts will have to be a certain shape in order to function the way they need to function. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
once that's done, once I kind of figure out how much of this I can hack away and still be comfortable with it, then I can go to fitting a body around it.
Yeah.
But this is really good for visually seeing kind of the things that I want to change so that I can start to tend in those directions because I think that's going to be really important.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
Very nice. Very nice.
so yeah, so I look forward to this.
Yeah.
I
Let's
think
do
the
this again
fact that our
next week.
airsoft fields are opening up and that there's an event in 2 weeks kind of
Ooh.
has a little bit of the coals to my feet to where I uh, I kind of want to get something new made to use for the match. So who
Well,
knows if at this point like less than 10 days is enough
can
to
you bet? Yeah. I was gonna
10
say, can
days
you
is
make this in
enough to
time?
design, print, CNC, and assemble, and then test a new design. But I've done worse before,
Well.
so
Yeah. I was gonna say, you've time crunched yourself. Of course.
that seems to be my mo. Is I'll come up with something I really want to do, but I was stupid enough to come up with it like five
At the
days
last minute.
before I actually need the thing, so I rushed to get it
But you
done.
know what? But that sometimes that's. I mean, you if you succeed most of the time, then that's just how you do it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If it works out for you, then that's
I
great.
I work very well under pressure, but I simultaneously hate it. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
Like
double edged
I'll
sword.
procrastinate.
It's like I totally see that like working under pressure, I can focus and I can focus really well and my productivity skyrockets, but at the same time I just hate it.
Yeah, I'm the same way with certain things. Like I'll procrastinate until the last minute because I know at the last minute I'll get it done. I'll do a good job on it, and I'll hate doing it while I'm doing it. And then
Yeah.
and then I'm grumpy afterwards, and it's just like, well, it's done. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah,
I
yeah, I do
think
that
I
all the
have.
time with stuff.
I think I have exceeded my yawns per minute quota. I'm starting to yawn faster.
Oh,
So
I
I
haven't even
think that.
noticed you're yawning. Oh,
Oh, well, I'm
now that
not.
you're
I'm not.
talking,
I'm not yawning aloud. I'm
now
making
that
the
you're talking
motion.
about it, I'm gonna yawn.
Don't do that. It's contagious.
Yeah, well, you might when my cat yawns, I yawn. It's contagious through species too.
Jeez.
Yeah, or if I hear somebody yawning, or if they talk about it, doesn't matter. I'll start yawning.
Well, cool. Well, I think we're gonna call this a night. It's past midnight here on the
The
West
West
Coast,
Coast,
and Emery and the good old Canada's is an hour ahead of me. So,
the
um,
Mountain Standard Time.
so with this, I think we're gonna call this a night. I think there was a lot of good discussion in terms of kind of where this is going and some design things that
Absolutely,
I need to do. At the very least, talking it out is if you're a creative person or you're a designer, at the very least, talking something out is highly helpful for kind of cataloging the things that you're thinking about and also getting a solid foundation for where to go next. So I think this
absolutely.
is in a good place, and I think we might see more of it in the future. Obviously, my aggressive timeline is not super conducive to streaming a ton before it's supposed to be done. So
You have to get it all done. True.
we'll see if
Or
next
next
Monday
weekend.
is we'll see if next Monday is another impromptu stream and
This time we'll get
finishing
drunk.
this
I
off.
promise I'll be drunk for next week. Or not drunk, but I'll have a couple. I'll have whiskey for next
Next
week.
week
So.
is episode 10. Next week is double digits. We have to just get
Oh shoot!
we
You're
have to
right.
get absolutely plastered and
We have to have
celebrate the fledgling
10 ounces
podcast.
each. 10 ounces alcohol each.
So
I guess that's not that much, but
well, thank you
anyways.
everyone. Thank you for
Good
joining
night,
us,
everyone.
and we'll probably see you all again next Monday because that seems to be the new thing that
Yep, Monday
Monday
seems to be
rolls
working.
around, I get everything done, and then I'm like, Emery, let's stream, and then
Hell yeah.
that's just the end of it. So,
This was literally the highlight of my day. So thank you for that, Drew.
jeez, don't say that. Don't say
No, no, no,
that.
no, in a good way. Like this. Now put me in a good mood. So.
Well, shit. Now we need to do a morning podcast so that
Oh shit.
we can
I'd
set
be.
your day off right.
No kidding.
Start your
No
day with
kidding.
AeroMaiden, just a big cup of AeroMaiden straight to the face.
Yeah. You don't
So,
need coffee, just cup of AeroMaiden.
geez. it's 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 um it's grade C maple syrup in a cup.
There you go. Yeah. Grade C is the best, by the way, in Canada.
No,
Grade
no, no.
A
I
is
thought it was
shit.
grade A. I just want grade C because it's
No.
like
Oh no, no.
like almost.
I think it's backwards or something. I don't know why.
I don't know. I thought the grade C was literally tar.
You know what? I'm gonna have to do some looking because I don't know. I should know, but I don't.
I look to you for maple syrup advice.
Sorry, I'll get more educated. All right. Good night, everyone.
Yep. Have a good night, everyone. See you guys next week.